With a very short yet successful career, Juice WRLD was one of the biggest names to come out of the SoundCloud era. And now that his supposed last album, The Party Never Ends, has been released, I wanted to go through each of his albums and rank them from worst to best. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off, of course, in last place. In last place, I have World on Drugs. There's honestly not too much to say on this one, I just wasn't feeling a good majority of the songs on this project. There are definitely a couple decent tracks like Fine China and Realer and Realer, but for the most part it's nothing to write home about, and a lot of the songs are honestly carried by Juice. A lot of the flows are quite uninteresting as well, especially from Future in many places, and almost every feature is unfortunately quite forgettable. I think if they had picked some better beats and spent more time working together, it could have turned out great. I mean, two great artists like Future and Juice WRLD working together should work on paper, but it just falls short in so many places. So for that, I'm placing World on Drugs in the D tier. Up next, I have The Party Never Ends. This album is just disappointing in all honesty. With this being Juice's final album, I really hoped it would be a good proper send-off and wrap up his discography well. But instead they managed to make an album that took 3 years to come out feel rushed. And on top of that, some tracks don't really fit with the theme of the album. Like, although Party by Myself is my favourite song off the record, I wouldn't say it makes me feel like I'm, quote, at a Juice WRLD concert. But don't get me wrong, tracks like Empty Out Your Pockets and KTM Drip are great examples of where this theme and concept works. Now, I can't not talk about this cover because what the actual f*** is going on here? You're telling me the man that made these two iconic covers made this? And I can't decide whether this or the pre-party cover is worse. It's a real toss-up. But anyway, to finish up on this one, I'm just not sure if this album should have ever even come out. Besides a few highlights, it doesn't do a lot for me, so for that, I'm placing The Party Never Ends in the C tier. Up next, I have Fighting Demons. This album is a little bit more consistent, but not by much, with its track listing and theme touching a lot on drug addiction and mental health struggles, which as you may know is a very common theme across his catalogue. There are definitely highlights off this record, especially the track Burn. His vocal delivery along with a great beat produced by Metro Boomin makes for one of my favourite Juice songs of all time. Now, similar to the last one, this record was handled quite weirdly by Grade A, with the album eventually ending up having 4 different versions. There's the original, the complete edition which added a second verse to the song Go Hard, and so they named it Go Hard 2.0 as a new song without getting rid of the original non-complete one. The extended version in which they added the song Cigarettes, which I actually think is quite a decent track. And the Digital Deluxe, where they added the song Sometimes, along with 2 previously released tracks, Rich and Blind and Legends. Not really sure why they decided to do all that, I guess they were just trying to cram as many songs as they possibly could into this thing, all at different times for some reason. But anyway, overall this album is just fine, it's not bad, it's not great, it's just there. So for that, I'll be putting Fighting Demons in the C tier. Next up, I have Goodbye and Good Riddance. Now, I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one, but I do think this album is a little bit overrated. Not bad, just overrated. As a whole, I do think it's consistent, but quite a few songs don't really stand out to me all that much. Especially I'll Be Fine and Long Gone. They're okay as individual tracks, but don't add too much in the grand scheme of things. However, there are some great songs on this project, with the track I'm Still being a big highlight for me. His passionate vocal delivery makes for such a beautiful song. And then there's the track Armed and Dangerous, which does a great job at breaking up the very mellow tone this album sets with its fun energy and catchy beat. Now, I definitely can't not talk about this album's influence. It's one of the highest streamed albums ever on Spotify, with it having nearly 2 songs over 1 billion streams and a third sitting at nearly 3 billion streams. These songs and the album as a whole inspired an entirely new generation of artists, due to its vulnerability and heavy subjects, with its themes of heartbreak, mental health and substance abuse. So with everything said, I'm going to be placing Goodbye and Good Riddance in the B tier. Up next, I have Legends Never Die. This album would have been a great send-off to Juice had it have been the last album. I personally think they should have just left it at this after its release. It features one of my favourite Juice songs to date with the track Righteous. This was the first posthumous release after his passing, and even now is still quite eerie to listen to, with its lyrical content as well as a few other tracks almost seemingly predicting his own passing. The album as a whole has a very concentrated theme of drug addiction and mental health struggles, and I think it sort of opened a lot of people's eyes to the struggles that Juice and even other artists face. Now, the album does get a little samey in a couple places, where a few tracks don't add too much lyrically, but that's not to say these tracks are bad. There's almost always something to enjoy or appreciate throughout its runtime, which I think is a great display of the talent that Juice WRLD had. So overall, I think Legends Never Die is a pretty solid album, and again would have been a great send-off, so for that, I'm going to be placing it in the A tier. And finally, for my favourite Juice WRLD album. In first place, I have Death Race for Love. After releasing less than a year after Goodbye and Good Riddance, this album is to me considerably better, and what's even more impressive is that a good majority of this project was freestyled. There are all kinds of emotions to go through while listening to this thing, ranging from emotional melodic moments like on Flaws and Sins on Who Shot Cupid, where he again touches on substance abuse and love, to more hard-hitting hype moments like on the tracks Syphilis and On God, where he seemed to just be having more fun. The track Fast is also a huge standout for me. His chilled, laid-back flow over this track just works so well. It might even be my #1 favourite Juice song ever. And on top of that, I think Desire is a super underrated track. He was really pouring his heart out on this one. One side note I'd like to quickly mention is just how cool this cover is. It takes big inspiration from the Twisted Metal series for the original PlayStation, and whoever made this cover did a fantastic job. Now, my only big gripe with this album is the track Ring Ring. I wasn't really feeling this one too much, especially the feature. I don't think it really needed to be on the album, but it's not an absolutely terrible song. I'm sure someone likes it. So overall, I would definitely say this album was the peak of his creativity and talent. His beat selection was on point, he had a great flow over most of the songs, and his vocal performances were almost all round good. So with everything said and done, I'm going to be placing Death Race for Love in the A tier. And there you have it, that was every Juice WRLD album ranked. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what other artists you would like to see me do this for. Anyways, thanks for watching and take care.